Right, what we got? What are we starting with?
Well, only one place to start, isn't there? It's the story we've been speaking about for much of the morning. Jordan Henderson, will he stay? Will he go? No agreement, crucially, between the two clubs. But I think we can now say that Jordan Henderson is open to this move to Saudi Arabia. £700,000 a week on offer if Liverpool can agree a price. Looks like he will be following his former teammate Steven Gerrard to Saudi. And those calls from various groups are only going to get louder.
Yeah, so this is obviously taking a step forward in the last 24 hours. The meeting between him and Klopp obviously coming to a conclusion that actually there is probably something in it for him to go there. I must admit, if he was to go, and I'm still saying if, because we don't know that it's definitely going to happen yet. He hasn't said that he's going. I'd want to hear his reasons for doing so. I'd be surprised. Listen, I don't begrudge any player making a decision based on their career, but bearing in mind his allyship to the LBGT community, then I would be surprised that if it didn't come into his thinking. So he may well have an explanation for it.
And he may feel that by going to Saudi Arabia, he's actually in a stronger position to spread that message. So I think we have to reserve complete judgment until we have heard his reasons. What we do know is that Liverpool aren't going to make this easy. They're certainly not going to let their captain leave on a free transfer. They're not going to let him leave for a minimal fee, because I think they still believe he's someone who can have a massive influence in the dressing room. It's going to take £20 million.
So if they lose Jordan Henderson and Fabinho to Saudi Arabia, that leaves them with a massive hole in a midfield which already was in need of replenishment and reinforcement. Yeah,
keep an eye on Moises Caicedo, somebody else that we've spoken a lot about over the course of this transfer window, mainly in regards to Chelsea. Mauricio Pochettino, a massive fan of the Brighton midfielder, but it's my understanding that if Henderson and indeed Fabinho do head for Saudi Arabia, then they would come into the conversation with regard to Caicedo. It's not going to be an easy deal to do. Brighton have been watching with interest the Declan Rice situation, £105 million for him, and they believe that Caicedo is on a par with Declan Rice, so it's going to take a big offer to prize him away. They go on pre-season to America next week. They're playing Chelsea, ironically, out in the States. I think it's in Philadelphia, and the plan at the moment is that Caicedo will be on the plane for that pre-season tour.
Aston Villa have been told to smash their transfer record to sign Bayern Munich winner Moussa Diaby, Bayern Leverkusen winger Moussa Diaby. Leverkusen want 50 million quid for him, but he's not the only forward that they're looking at. I saw this morning that they were looking at Brennan Johnson. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Brentford also have a long-standing interest in Brennan Johnson. I think probably the asking price from Forest, which we believe to be around about £50 million, would be too rich for Brentford. But Aston Villa, I've mentioned it a few times over the course of the summer, they've got money to spend. They're going to back Unai Emery. They've got a new sporting director in Monchi who wants to make his mark. So keep an eye on that in terms of Brennan Johnson. Definitely a player that Forest wouldn't want to lose. There was a lot of interest in him last summer, but having just won promotion to the Premier League, they were able to keep him. Obviously, his dad is a former Forest player as well. That will, I'm sure, come into his thinking should any offer be made. Just on Diaby, he's another player who also has interest from Saudi Arabia. So this is a test, isn't it? Does he want the Premier League or does he want the money in Saudi?
Do Aston Villa have the financial power to go up against Saudi Arabia?
This is another new dynamic, because I don't think that's happened this transfer window, where you've got a club from the Premier League competing directly.
He's in his 20s, isn't he, Moussa Diaby? He's not the oldest player in the world, is he? He's still quite young, Moussa Diaby. So it'd be interesting to see whether or not he would prefer, at the age of 24, to go to Saudi Arabia and earn a load of money, or play at the highest level.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It's going to be really
and he's not
intriguing.
the only one that's in a tug of war with Saudi Arabia, because also getting interest, I mentioned earlier in the programme, Aymeric Laporte and Riyad Mahrez, who we understand actually has been offered quite a key deal to move to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I was told that would be £45 million a season, so even more than what Jordan Henderson is being offered, and you can understand why. He's younger than Henderson, he's a more dynamic player than Henderson. You could argue that he's a bigger name, and it looks like he's open to that move. This is a big summer for Manchester City, because there are key players who've already left in Ilkay Gundogan. That wasn't necessarily part of Pep Guardiola's plan. There's going to be interest, we understand, from Paris Saint-Germain in Bernardo Silva, a player who I think was open to moving last summer and will be open to doing so again. Kyle Walker, we've mentioned those reports in Germany, haven't been denied by Manchester City that his agents have agreed terms with Bayern Munich. Still no agreement crucially, between the two clubs. They've signed Mateo Kovacic, but I think they need a little bit more, Manchester City, if they're to pick up where they left off last season.
It does feel like a period of change is going on there after the treble winning. I mean, is that because players feel as if they've done everything they can ever do there and they want to try something new? Or is it because Pep Guardiola is looking to refresh from a position of strength?
I think a combination of the two. I think if you look at Kyle Walker, for example, he was disappointed that he didn't play in the Champions League final. I don't think Mahrez started either the FA Cup final or the Champions League final, and that definitely didn't go down well with him. So this is the balancing act, isn't it? When you've got such a talented squad, trying to keep them happy. You have to say that Pep's done that quite well so far, but maybe just one or two cracks beginning to show.
Premier League newcomers Luton Town have signed Birmingham City winger Taith Chong for about £4 million. The 23-year-old moved to St Andrews from Manchester United last summer for about £1.5 million after a really good loan spell the previous season. He made 41 appearances for the Blues last season, scored 4 times during that as they finished 17th in the Championship. Manchester United get a little slice of that back as well, don't they?
25% sell on, so that they'll be quite happy with that. I think it's a good signing for Luton, because Bournemouth did this to some effect last summer. The players they recruited, they thought they could do a job in the Premier League, but they also were of the belief that they were to go down into the Championship. They were signing ready-made players to bring them back up again, and certainly Chong has proven his worth at that level. They need a goalkeeper. Luton. They tried for Asmir Begovic. He's off to QPR. He's going to sign a one-year contract with them. They tried for Tom Heaton. Manchester United weren't willing to let him go out all the time, that they were still weighing up what to do with De Gea.
That might change now, though.
It could change, and they've also held talks with Blackburn over Thomas Kaminski, but at the moment the two clubs are a little way apart in terms of a fee. So I think what we're seeing from Luton, £4 million would be a club record, I believe, for them. They're not splashing big time, are they?
They've been sensible. And have you seen the pictures of Kenilworth Road?
Yeah, it seems to be developing.
Yes, they've taken down the double glazing showrooms on one side of the ground. It's so tightly packed, it's so difficult for them to do anything in that ground. They've had to put something on the pitch so that the construction vehicles that are building the new temporary stand on that side of the ground, where they're going to put new changing rooms and media facilities, TV gantries and camera operator posts on that far side. But it's so shallow in terms of the depth between the edge of the pitch and where the houses that it backs onto are. It's so very, very difficult that all the construction stuff is actually lined on the pitch as they try to get ready for the start of the new season. Their first game at home is supposed to be on the second weekend. When the fixtures come out, I thought, that's ambitious if they're going to get it done by them, because I think that what they were hoping for was a couple of away games, first of all, to get them started so that they could push that back to later on in maybe the beginning of September. But it looks now they're going to be asked to do that earlier. They may well have to postpone that first home game of the season, which I think is against Burnley. Chelsea have finally sold Christian Pulisic to Italian club AC Milan for £20 million. We knew it was happening because Ruben Loftus-Cheek said that he was on his way, and they were talking about where they were going to go out for dinner and what they were going to do when he turned up. So I'll just scrub that name off my Chelsea squad now. It gets even lighter.
And Lukaku will go, won't he? Probably to Inter Milan, although at the moment...
Aubameyang, I think he'll go as well.
No fee agreed. But I think they're trying to shift him to Saudi Arabia. But obviously, Lukaku didn't want to make that move. But yeah, I think he will move on. Looks increasingly likely at the moment, like Conor Gallagher, another player who's got a lot of suitors, will stay. I think he's on Tottenham's list, but
he's got to stay.
They've got no other midfielders, have they, at this moment in time?
Chukwuemeka's 19, Enzo Fernandez and Gallagher. That's what they've got at this moment in time. And the young Andre Santos, who's 18.
Yeah, it would be a big blow for them if Liverpool did steal in for Caicedo, or if they couldn't agree a fee with Brighton for him. Romeo Lavia is another player that I know certain parts of their leadership group, if you like, admire. Southampton have put a big...
one of their three sporting directors.
Big fee on his head. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And James Ward-Prowse has run on the subject of Southampton. I mentioned it earlier. David Moyes, I think, is interested in taking him to London Stadium. He sees him as a leader, maybe someone who can actually replace Declan Rice as club captain. But again, I don't think Southampton financially will make that deal easy.
I think Poch wants a bit more experience in that team. I think he's pushing for a little bit more experience in that team. We'll see if he gets it. That was a look at the latest transfer news on talkSPORT with McDonald's. Order on the McDonald's app today.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.